Our mission statement with Personal Edge Fitness is we seek to make our clients feel better about being themselves. And we do this by helping each one of our clients reach what we call their level of wellness. Now, I've spoken about that many times on many podcasts, but as with any other health provider, we can't answer every question and we cannot handle every situation. Because of that, we make sure we partner with some of the best minds in the health industry in our community. And we look for those that have the same outlook for their clients as we do. Well, a particular company in town has the same approach, and they call it Health Span. We want to share with you a podcast today that we did with the Connexus Clinic and Dr. William Terry today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today for our 159th podcast. I throw that number out there because I'm pretty proud of that. So, and really excited about doing this. We actually talked about this podcast a few weeks ago, and so I'm excited to be here today. But first, as always, I want to tell you how to get in touch with us if you have any questions about this podcast or any others, or like our breast cancer awareness podcast that we did last week. If you have an idea for a podcast or something you want us to discuss, please contact us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website and also our Facebook page. If you prefer Twitter, you can hit me up at TeamPE. We're back today, and I want to introduce my guest here with Dr. William Terry of the Connexus Clinic. William, welcome. Glad to have you, man.
Very glad to be here. Enjoyed our last convo, and happy to be back.
As did I. And in full disclosure, if we didn't mention in the last podcast, William and I have known each other for quite some time, and we both come from medical families, and I love this because I don't think I've ever done this before. We were both pole vaulters.
Yes, we're both pole vaulters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting to talk to a fellow pole vaulter, which is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy. But we're talking to William today about the Connexus Clinic. But William, tell everybody about yourself a little bit because you've got a great background.
Yeah, sure. So again, thanks for having me. And so I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was brought down to Mobile pretty quickly thereafter. So I was raised entirely down here in Mobile, and had the good privilege of going to UMS Wright for grade school and all the way up through high school. I went up to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville for undergraduate. I studied religious studies there as well as the pre-med curriculum. So I kind of had a little both worlds there with my undergrad. Went to USA down here in Mobile, University of South Alabama for medical school.
Right.
Got a great spot up at University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, for my urology residency, my general surgery intern year, my urology residency. Right. Got out of residency in 2013, quickly came back down here to Mobile. I practiced with my father, Dr. Jeff Terry, for a couple of years until his passing, and then continued on. So I've been down here since 2013 doing general urology with a focus in men's health, kidney stone disease, and reconstructive types of surgery. Right. And have had just a wonderful career. And, I love urology. I love the surgery. I love the medicine. I'm always going to be doing that. That's a passion of mine.
Right.
But I learned a lot through my education and up till present that the type of system that I operate in my day job, if you want to call it that, is very much what we call a disease care model. We use the term healthcare a lot, and we use it kind of loosely. And there is some good quality preventative care that happens in primary care doctors' offices and
of course
at various points through our system. But a lot of what I do is disease care. It's caring for people who already have some pretty significant problems.
Sure.
It's very responsive. Right. And it's heavy, and people have some bad problems that they are facing and that they get through. And what I'm really enjoying about what we do here at the Connexus Clinic is something more in line with health care.
I tell you what, I love your approach to that, and the fact that I knew your father, and I know that you were a physician. In fact, you were talking with me about urology on this is the third podcast with us, as a matter of fact. Absolutely. But what I like about it is the fact that coming from a medical family, and too many times I hear people talking about it, bashing the medical field, talking about it doesn't do this preventative, doesn't do this preventative. Yeah. The key there is that most of the time you're going to the physician because you've got something wrong,
Right.
and you need it fixed, you need it corrected or whatever.
Right.
And the medical field, the MDs are dedicated to that, as
Right.
as they should be, absolutely.
Right.
But what I find interesting about your story is that you had, if you don't mind the term, an awakening of sorts, and it dealt with your theme here, which is health span.
Correct. I love that word. I'm glad.
Yeah, I do too, and I wanted to get to it, because it goes in line with personal edge.
Yeah. So health span. Health span is best described in contrast to another word that we all know, which is lifespan.
Right.
Right. So lifespan clearly is how long you live, how many years you live.
Sure.
And everyone likes to talk about longevity and extending their lifespan. But I would challenge folks who think about lifespan by itself and challenge them to consider, how long are you living feeling good? That is the term health span.
Period.
How long a life do you have while feeling good? I'm not saying you get to 100 if you feel like crap.
Yeah.
Starting at age 65,
Right.
That's not real desirable for anybody.
It's not living.
Yeah, not living. A great life isn't great unless you're feeling great.
Period. And the constant belief that feeling that you're talking about, I made it to 100, that's good enough, or whatever, but why aren't you feeling fantastic?
Right.
That constant belief that that automatically happens is absurd.
Yeah.
And that's why I love y'all's dedication to it. If you're thinking about health span, if you're a fan of the podcast, this should sound really familiar to you because it's in line with, of course, Personal Edge's mission statement, which is we seek to make our clients feel better about being themselves by reaching their level of wellness, and it's in line exactly with what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So, but your personal journey of coming to this was very interesting.
Yeah, you'd think that someone who dedicated their life and their education to healthcare and learning about the body, and you'd think that there'd be some level of insight and self-practice, but there was not.
I appreciate it. He is very honest about this. This is what I like about this story. So
yeah. So people who know me, I ran cross country and track in high school. I did pole vault. Soccer.
Side note, he probably doesn't like me. He was a diver also when he was much younger also.
Absolutely.
So sorry, not what you wanted to point out. Go ahead, please.
Well, the diving led to the pole vaulting, actually.
Right.
So
Both of them require frontal lobotomy. So
actually, you probably, and here's how it goes. I had a trampoline growing up, which made me do flips. You saw that. You helped coach me diving, which gave me that confidence to fly through the air, which led me to pole vaulting, which I think got me into UVA. So I basically have you to thank.
Okay, well, great. And just to be humble, I will take all the credit. I really will. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, please.
I went on a tangent.
Yeah, it's okay.
So you'd think that I would have, an awareness and sort of a practice of good habits and putting the rubber to the road. But really, the medical education process is pretty brutal. And you go through med school and it's just like drinking from the fire hose all day, every day, getting this
Put it lightly.
information. Yeah. And then you have residency, which is, even though it's not nearly as brutal as it used to be back when residents were literally working all day, every day in the hospital for 5 years,
right.
There's 80-hour work week rules now. But it's a very unbalanced life. And there's a lot of stress, especially if you have kids in residency and try to start a family. And I just got going on this treadmill of education and learning. Sure. And I was eating it up. I love the subject matter and I love surgery. But I found myself at age 39, 40,
right?
Well, after all my formal education had ended, I just continued that pace of life and that work focus to the point that I was starting to see some significant differences in my body and my endurance and what I was capable of,
right?
And the way I was feeling compared to what I remembered feeling like back in college.
Sure.
And I didn't like it. My family noticed it. I was irritable.
Right.
Easy to push my buttons. I just, didn't eat right, didn't sleep right, didn't exercise right, and it was affecting the way I felt and I wasn't living the quality of life that I wanted to.
And anybody that knows you and knew you as you grew up, or whatever, that is not you.
It's not me.
Never has been.
Anyone who knows me knows I've always kind of been a runner. I've been active and I probably have a little bit of an overactive type of mentality anyway, and I got to move to feel good.
Sure.
And I wasn't doing that, and I wasn't feeling good. And, I just started reading, and I just started trying to educate. And it really, the beginning of the Connexus clinic, when my good buddy Blake Martin texted me one day and said, hey, I got a different idea for a different kind of clinic, that was a bit of a spark for me because my mind opened up. I kind of slowed off of all this over here, started to read outside my field a little bit.
Sure.
Get back into some basic physiology, back into some basic nutrition.
Right.
And I really plugged into some amazing new inputs, some very forward thinkers
Right.
and researchers who are just all over the web with their own podcasts and feeds. And they're just, I call them positive inputs, because
Right.
they distill all this research that's coming out. And they make it very digestible and very applicable. So
Sure,
long
sure.
story short, I started making some basic changes, and I started feeling the results of that. And that has just merged perfectly with Connexus. And
Right.
we are trying to do the same for our friends here.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and the change, I like the influences that you have. We've had several conversations about this,
Yeah.
and I have to say, there are a lot of people that thought they were going this way and thought they were taking this approach. The reason, the way I like your approach so much, is that there is so much misinformation out there. It's the whole reason that I have this podcast, Dispelling the Myths of Health, Fitness, and Wellness. And what you said there, you were listening to positive people. There's too much finger wagging in this field, and a lot of it is just completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so thinking good about your body, thinking good about your outlook and what have you is the big difference. That's why I like your
It doesn't help
approach,
to guilt people or to shame people into making progress or to changing in their lives.
especially if it's based on a myth. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I love the idea that you can be the CEO of your health.
Period.
Right. And you have control over all the pieces of the puzzle that result in the picture of how you feel and how you function, and drive your health span in a positive direction.
You have control. Now you hear it from the doctor here. The same thing that I talk about, the fact that the whole, excuse me for going off on a tangent here, William, but as I've said many times before, you've heard it in the podcast on live aging, that it boils down to 4 things that control your ability: fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and the most important, which is mindset, and you have full control of those.
And
Absolutely.
Absolutely agree. And as I started making those changes and feeling better and getting positive feedback from my loved ones and just feeling better about myself, it started small, and it was what I call a positive snowball. That momentum built, and now certain habits that I had to install a year and a half ago and nurture and develop, they are my MO now.
Right.
And one big thing is just getting up early in the morning and getting stuff done. I mean,
Sure.
I've always gotten up early as a doctor, but I get up at 4:30 every morning.
Right,
now.
right,
And
right.
If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd get up at 4:30 and be the most productive part of my day, the first few hours,
Right.
I would have laughed and said, I have way too much stuff to do with clinic notes and getting to surgery.
Exactly.
And I would have made so many excuses.
Sure.
But I did it. I had a lot of support in that. I've felt the benefit, and I have a very powerful momentum with that habit now that really helps me. It's kind of the foundation of it all for me personally.
Absolutely, and this is why I mentioned this as an awakening. I mean, the thing you said a minute ago about you're a physician, you would think that I would have these practices and whatever. That is typically generally assumed.
Yeah.
But you're saying it now. You're very passionate about urology. You're very passionate about your field. But you notice those changes in yourself, and you went back and you started. Okay, why is this happening? What's going on? I know this shouldn't be. Which drove y'all toward this health span clinic called Connexus Clinic.
Yes.
But tell us a story about how it got started.
Yeah, sure. So I was sitting in my office one day, what I call pointing and clicking my way through life on the computer, signing off of things, doing notes, and just kind of generally being in la land. And I hate that. I hate the screen time, computer interaction. So I was doing that, and I got a text on my phone from a friend of mine named Blake Martin.
Right.
Blake is super experienced and knowledgeable in all things med tech, especially in the operating room.
Sure.
I worked with him in the urology OR for quite a while. He knows his stuff when it comes to tech in the OR and medical devices. And so he had my trust. I knew him. He's just a great guy, too, and he's a heck of an athlete. So anytime he texts me, I'm interested. It was a nice break in the monotony. And so he said, got an idea for a new kind of clinic. I'm like, wait, this is not just your average text. So I give him a call. I hear him out. And the idea, the scope of the idea was nothing like what we have become. But it started very focused.
Right.
No pun intended, because
Yeah.
what we wanted to start was we wanted to be the best darn men's health erectile dysfunction clinic in Mobile, Alabama.
Which is where this started.
Which is where this started.
Okay.
That was the nidus That was the initial crystal there.
Of course. And if you don't, excuse me for interrupting, but okay, your background is urology. Of course, that was starting your branching out into this, quite obviously. So excuse me.
And the reason it's a branch is because we have a piece of technology here that I'll go into later.
Yeah.
That is very much on the forefront of treatment for that problem.
Right.
And it's not being offered safely by
Sure.
anyone else in town. There's some people who say they have it, but they don't. And I'll get into that later too.
Right.
But we just got excited about constructing a different type of patient experience for guys to help with that issue. And we started researching and we started going, and we learned that you cannot fully treat that problem in men with one device or with one pill or with one anything, that it actually, to be responsible and respect the patient and do the best for them, you got to look at their lifestyle and every piece of the puzzle along the way, and that's how you're going to get the results that they want.
And this is why you didn't just go off with, okay, we're going to do an ED clinic is what we're going to do. You did the research and realized, wait a second, there's so much more to this approach, and you're awakening. And after talking to Blake, his too, that was the burning passion. Wait a second, there's an overall approach to this we want to go after, which took you to the next level.
Exactly. And it was a specific men's health ED clinic for maybe 48 hours in theory, before we were like, man, this is going to be bigger.
Right.
And that was scary because we knew at once that we weren't just going to be able to set up the business, churn and burn, replicate. It became much more than a business plan. It became kind of a mission, really.
A major mission. And anybody that speaks with either one of y'all are going to see, yes, the mission, but they're going to see the passion of it.
Yeah.
So
the best thing is seeing people make progress. So we started with that. And, the next step in our evolution was figuring out, if a male is sexually active, he's got a partner.
Right.
How's his partner doing?
Yeah.
Is there an issue there as well? Most of the time there is.
Right.
And so we opened up to considering the female side of that.
Sure.
And that's also very much wrapped up in urology. We see men and women in urology. But there are some female urology experts, and some of them are my close friends. I won't mention them here because I don't have their permission to. But we've got the resources to really help ladies as well, and in some very specific ways that I'll go through.
Right.
And again, for the ladies, it's not just about the sexual organs. It's about the whole body. It's about their body image, their sense of self-confidence, their comfort level with this and that, their general, cardiovascular and nutrition even. I mean, all things go into that sex drive.
Sure.
If any of those pieces are off, then the sexual experience will be off as well. So
obviously.
Quickly it expanded, and we built up this wonderful foundation of guidance and recommendation and resources that can help set the scene for excellent health in the pursuit of that health span that we talked about.
Sure.
But then we also learned, in addition to our device for guys, there are some amazing technologies out there that are research backed, they're safe, they're effective, and they can help sort of jumpstart people along their specific goals once they, kind of get worked up and get some other good habits going first.
And you take it, and like I said, yes, I love what you said about the fact it was an ED clinic for about 48 hours. Yeah. It's true. I mean, you walk in here and you realize that you take a you take a full step back, full body approach. In fact, one of the devices you have, it's one I'm most excited about, is the Fit 3D. And I mean, you're looking at, tell us about that, because you're starting looking at the entire body.
Sure. Yeah. So, after we go through, and just to get a little bit granular here for you guys, after we go through quality of sleep, stress management, exercise, diet, social, spiritual connections, and all the different little pieces of how you kind of get right, and really set that foundation. Yeah, we've got some great technologies, and this one that you mentioned, the Fit 3D, is very cool. It is a 3D body scanner. Right. You stand up. You're wearing full disclosure. You do have to wear kind of bathing suit type of garb for this because it needs details. But you stand up, and this column rotates around you. It does some very precise measurements from head to toe, and it will get down to the millimeter of your body. And it's a great way to set a beginning, to get a beginning understanding of what your body is looking like and kind of shaped like. And then you can use subsequent scans to compare to the first to see where you're making progress. Right. And it's very motivating. Right. It's data tracking, but any personal data you can track and document and make note of,
Right.
that is going to make a game out of your fitness journey for you. And psychologically, that is a life hack for you.
Yeah, very much so.
Anytime you can gamify or build in numbers and metrics,
Right.
you're going to get motivated. I mean, I wear a little ring that tells me about my sleep. I'm sleeping so much better than I ever have before
Right.
for all these reasons because of this little guy. The
Right.
Fit 3D is the same kind of thing for overall body composition.
Measure what matters.
Measure what matters.
I mean, we do that same thing in our business. I mean, it's easy to track, track weight, track body fat, and you've got numbers along with that. But we track the difference in people's steps of getting to that level of wellness.
Yep.
We track, how they're feeling about themselves and what have you. And that's all tracked. And I love what you said a minute ago, and I'm bringing it back up for our listeners because you hear me talk about this all the time. Real quickly, a minute ago, you said, okay, we were talking about ED, but the sexual health, and then you started saying, but we looked at fitness. What's your exercise like? What's your sleep like? What's your nutrition like, or whatever? And then you also threw in spiritual and what have you.
Yeah.
And this is back to what you all of you know that I'm all about as far as the whole idea of age. He just mentioned exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, and when you said spiritual, you went right to mindset because it all starts there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we don't try to micromanage.
No, definitely
things,
not.
Right? But we're human beings. Befriending and making clients of other human beings.
Sure.
We know the needs that people have, and because we live it too, and we just want to be as much of a 360-degree kind of helper to you as we possibly can. And if we need to get you to someone else with more expertise in a certain area, buddy, we got a network of people that we can hook you up with, from psychiatrists to dietitians to cardiologists to general medicine people. If we can't fix it here or give you the level of what you need here, we got you covered with our network.
Right.
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about that. You covered the machine I was so excited about, definitely. But you were talking earlier and about this chair that y'all have here, and I was fascinated about it mainly because the approaches that I've heard for treating some of these things have been they're poking and prodding, and this is a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a single technology that we've brought into the Connexus clinic that is an invasive technology. Right. Everything is non-invasive. Everything is comfortable. There's no pain with any of this stuff unless you're coming to us with a pre-existing injury that we can treat and help out with. The chair that you mentioned is called the EMCELLA chair. Okay. EM stands for electromagnetic. Right. Cella is the Latin word for chair.
Okay.
Right? So this company called BTL out of Belgium.
Right.
They have been in the business of med devices for a long time. They have some fantastic products. They specialize in this electromagnetic source of energy that can be applied in all these different therapeutic ways. The chair is a pretty, boring looking metal stool with a back on it. Right. It's got some little blue lights on it, fancy. A man or a woman can sit on this chair fully clothed for 28 minutes. Right. And a very powerful electromagnetic field is emitted from the base of this chair. It's directed towards the pelvic floor musculature. Sure. Right? Levator ani, mostly, and all that conglomeration of muscles down there. These muscles, guys, they support the bladder, the rectum, the vagina, the uterus, all the pelvic organs. And if that muscle hammock is sagging in any way, then those organs are lower than they should be. You get certain problems with urinary control, with bowel control, with pain during intercourse. The list goes on. Wow. In the past, options to treat this kind of trouble would be Kegel's exercises, which require conscious contraction of the pelvic floor muscles. You can do it. Those are the muscles that help you hold in gas.
Right, exactly.
You can do that over and over again. Women who've been through pregnancy training, delivery training, have worked these muscles to help. Sure. But it takes time and effort and intention to do them. And historically, patients in general have had a hard time doing them consistently.
Yes, exactly. I understand that.
There's also been surgeries done for these kinds of problems, especially the urinary leakage surgeries.
The most advanced of invasiveness.
Yeah, most invasive type of stuff. Very effective.
Yes, of course.
If a woman is leaking with 2, 3, or 4 pads a day, or maybe a man who's had his prostate removed from a cancer standpoint, same urinary leakage. Surgeries have been done to bring these muscles together, to lift the bladder, to support, put slings in, mesh, things like that. Sure. Very invasive. And so we are so excited, not only initially by the potential that this chair showed in the research that's been done on it.
Right.
But now that we've started having patients do the chair,
Sure.
we are seeing all sorts of benefits. People who are 2, 3, 4 pads a day due to their leakage problem, not needing pads anymore.
Right.
It kind of, the lady who went from 3 to 0 sort of blew our minds, because everyone's like, yeah, if you have 1 or 2, this is going to help you. But you know, everyone with leakage needs to try this chair before they do anything else.
Yeah.
The other thing that was very surprising, some men that have had prostate cancer have come in and sat on the chair for their urinary issues.
Right.
They report better erections and better
fantastic.
ejaculation,
Yeah.
And better higher climax afterwards, because men have different muscles down there than women, and when those muscles get stronger, things kind of work better.
Right, exactly.
Well, this chair is not going to cure severe erectile dysfunction, but this chair is absolutely, we're seeing it enhancing men's and women's sexual experience and urinary control. And then the third thing happened last week, totally off the wall. Never would have guessed it happened. There was a woman who was managing a kidney stone. The kidney stone was very low. It was about to pass.
Right.
It had not passed in 3 weeks, that it was caught at that last centimeter.
Ugh.
And
ouch.
This sweet lady who's in for the urinary issue, getting her urinary treated, she passed her stone after a treatment on the Imceller.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
After 3 weeks of it could have been coincidence, but it happened, and we were so happy for her. She was dancing a jig with her little stone. Anyway, so the Imceller chair, it's the only reason you can't get it, you cannot have a copper or a metal IUD in the uterus. That's because of the magnetism, clearly.
Right.
You cannot have any hip implants, orthopedic implants made of metal.
Sure.
And certainly if you're pregnant, you don't need to get on that thing.
Yeah.
But those are really the only main contraindications to
well,
it.
and now we've gone deep in the Imceller chair, especially with your background in urology, but that's your approach in the Connexus clinic about the non-invasiveness. Yeah. But you've got, like I said, we started with the Fit 3D talking about that, looking at the entire approach, which helped build, back to that whole reason you're doing this, the idea of the health span. Mm-hmm. So your approach not only to that, but you've got other things that you do, with a lot of other things to do. That's one facet, and talking to your urologist is one that I know he's excited about.
Sure.
So tell us about some of the other stuff.
Yeah, that one made sense because of my background in urology.
Of course.
Another very related product to the Imceller chair, made by the same company and essentially using the same technology, this high intensity electromagnetism to contract musculature. It's called the M-Sculpt Neo.
Okay.
Now, the Neo has been great. It's got 2 components to it. Let me back up and describe it a little bit better. The first component is the electromagnetism, the muscle working.
Sure.
The second component is a type of energy called RF energy. It's radio frequency energy.
Right.
It can actually heat up tissue. And when you heat different tissues in certain ways, you get different responses. When you heat up fat tissue with radio frequency energy, it mobilizes the fat. It helps you literally kind of melt the fat over whatever area you're treating.
Right.
So this device simultaneously heats up that fat layer, strengthens up that muscle layer. And if you can get a mental picture of that, you're decreasing the fat thickness, you're increasing the muscle tone and size, you're going to get much better definition.
And how long are treatments like this? And I mean, do we have to, is this something you have to fast for beforehand or whatever, or anything changes?
There's no preparation for it really, other than you want to stay very well hydrated through these things. You want to be just really pounding the water or the whatever electrolyte beverage you prefer.
Right. I didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah,
That's actually part of this.
Low sugar electrolyte beverage. We say there's so many different versions of them out there, but that's the point. But we want to mobilize your fluids while you're doing this, hydrate well. And then even maybe go for a workout afterwards, especially for the M-Sculpt, because once you mobilize that fat, it's in your system, it's in your lymphatics.
Right.
So if you can go ahead and burn that fat as energy or mobilize it through your system, that's the best way to get the results you want.
I got you.
M-Sculpt Neo, it is 2 paddles, and you can put these paddles on the abdomen, on the thighs, on the glutes, the butt, or even on your arms, biceps, or triceps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the muscles underneath are going to benefit. It helps you tone. It helps you sculpt. And so it's much more kind of focal therapy for your body.
Right.
We've had some golfers come in with low back pain.
Right.
You go through once a week for 6 weeks, and their back pain is vastly improved because it's not just body sculpting. It's actually it's a form of physical therapy.
Okay, I got you.
This will never replace physical therapy.
Of course, yes, I understand.
Good exercise, working out, but it is an enhancement to whatever muscle group that may be bothering you.
Right.
So the golfers with their abs, their lower back, It's some people have used it for recovery after runs, legs and glutes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
and you were talking, and that kind of leads us to something you mentioned earlier that y'all do address, and that is that you injuries. Because I was here at one of your open houses and was watching somebody get treatment about that. Is that the same device, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, great question. It's a different device. It is called the radial wave.
Okay.
And this is similar to an acoustic wave or a sound wave therapy.
Right.
We deliver this energy through a handheld device. It looks kind of like a little water gun or something. It makes a pretty loud popping sound. Pop,
right.
Pop. But we apply that energy through the wand with some ultrasound gel on top of whatever muscle group or tendon has been injured. Right?
Sure.
And so what happens is these waves go through and they stimulate the microvasculature, the small vessels in those areas. And it's much better than heat or ice in terms of bringing blood flow.
Increasing circulation.
Increasing
Absolutely.
circulation,
Yeah.
more oxygen, scavenging free radicals, even break down of scar tissue a little bit,
right.
tissue remodeling.
I got you.
And we have treated some high school football athletes very successfully.
Oh, wow.
We've treated runners with plantar fasciitis,
right.
with shin splints,
right.
with a condition called ischial bursitis. It's a type of energy that is not painful and it's not harmful at all. You get treated like this every day for the rest of your life. It wouldn't damage your tissue.
Right.
It's just bringing blood flow to the areas that you need it to.
We've talked about this in recovery. When I've talked to you about that you've heard me say this before, that in what we do in exercise or whatever, we're not building anything. We're actually breaking down muscle tissue, and your body, if you have the right amount of calories, the right protein, what have you, your body's going to build that muscle stronger. That's what we're talking about. The increasing the blood flow in those areas, increasing circulation is going to increase nutrients. It's going to speed recovery. Yep. And listeners have heard me make the argument that I believe that since we're spending so much more time on recovery now, studying recovery, that I believe we're going to be able to enhance our workouts by possibly, I envision one day that we can fully break down a muscle and 24 hours later it's repaired and we can fully break down it again. Now, that's an opinion of Garrett that I've said that we're leading that way, but technology like this leads me to believe that this is where we're headed.
Yeah,
so
it's been I've called it the dark horse technology in our clinic. Because we've had so many happy folks through here. And we were an ED only clinic for 48 hours, right? And now we're doing
48 hours,
a little bit of
that,
PT enhancement, very superficial level sports medicine kind of stuff.
Right.
And again, we'll never replace those excellent people in our community who do PT and who do true sports medicine, the orthos. I mean, all those guys, hey, they're the authorities, but we've got this tech that is the same basic machine that treats the ED that can treat all these other conditions.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's just so much fun to see it work.
Definitely. Well, we talked about doing the consult and possibly coming in, like I was saying, about just getting that scan with the Fit 3D. But how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram presence, the Connexus Clinic. We've got a Facebook presence. We've got a website, theconnexusclinic.com.
Sure.
If you just Google us, we've got Google knows everything about us, so you can find our phone number there. It's all very readily available. So,
sure, great. We'll have it, and we'll have it on the. If you're watching this podcast in our social media, we'll have all that contact information on there also. So, like I say, we could go on for hours. So we probably better bring this to a close. But William, thank you so much for being on with us. I appreciate it very much.
It's
so
my pleasure. Yeah.
As always, I'm always talking about the reaching somebody's level of wellness. The approach of forget about this whole thing about your time dictating your health. It doesn't whatsoever. And obviously, always looking for partners that feel the same way. It's wonderful when we have partners, especially in the medical field, that have done that kind of research and see the same truths that we do, because they're doing the same thing. They're after the same idea we are, which is doing everything to help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you soon.